And now we have the guest of the second hour tonight, Mr. Mark Jungwirth, on the line with us. Mark, welcome to the Jackal's Head, my friend.
Hey, what's going on? Good evening, everybody.
Now, it's quite a pleasure having you on because I've been checking out your YouTube videos for quite some time now. And you and I have talked. You know, we've known each other for a little bit here. But you've never been on the show. The audience here doesn't know you very well, so let's tell the audience a little bit about your background before we go into the main topics that we're going to touch on tonight.
Sure. Well, basically, I've been studying the, grand conspiracies, it's come to be known, or the New World Order, whatever people want to call it, for about 8 years, after finding out about, the truth, I guess, that's commonly known as now. Once I found out about all this stuff, I started a chapter of We Are Change after I started handing out DVDs and yada yada. I ended up finding out a lot of things about We Are Change through, running the chapter here and being in contact with the main chapter. Found out that the New York chapter is actually being run by a 32nd degree Freemason. Busted that information out. Got our chapter essentially kicked out. We still do things, but you can no longer find our chapter at the wearechange.org main hub site. So basically, I don't know. I've come to find out a lot of counterintelligence, a lot of operatives, some knowing, some unknowing. Some people who put out a lot of information that's either incorrect or whatever. Some people just are literally dupes, and other people are willing agents. And when it comes to We Are Change, it's definitely controlled at the top. And when it comes to people like Alex Jones, who's the biggest name in alternative media,
Right.
Definitely knowing controlled opposition there. And honestly, when I found out Jones, was controlled opposition, that was my big wake-up call to everything. And that was, that was just like, all right, now what else is dirty? And I had to do a bunch of snooping around and found out that there's literally, dirt everywhere. And the majority of, the people that are known as being, are looked at as being the big patriot heroes, are either operatives or unknowing dupes. But that's, the unfortunate truth.
So what exactly do we think that Alex Jones is? What's your position on what is Alex Jones? I personally think myself that he's an agent of disinformation, and he is a Illuminati member. And, of course, even a Freemason member, probably. But what do you think? Do you agree with that, or do you think he's more than that?
Well, I'm not even sure that he's that. I don't, I haven't seen any absolute proof to say that he's a member of any secret society, although he certainly covers for certain secret societies and doesn't like to talk about their existence. Some societies being the Knights of Malta and the Jesuits. There are filters for both of those words on Infowars.com when you try to make comments on Infowars.com articles. And I want to be specific about this because there are people that are out there that are going to listen to this, that are going to go to, say, Prison Planet Forum, and they're going to try to type the words Knights of Malta. You can type the words Knights of Malta in on Prison Planet Forum. That's not a problem. And even recently, believe it or not, I have typed in the words Knights of Malta on Infowars and seen it post. I've also seen instances of it, multiple instances previous to this being removed. However, I have a recent video that I posted, to YouTube, to my channels, youtube.com/wearechangeoshkosh and youtube.com/Derek in the Midwest. Derek is DEREK. And my latest video is titled Alex Jones, the Knights of Malta, and the Jesuits. And in this video, I compile a lot of information connecting Alex Jones to members of the Knights of Malta and the Jesuits, and as well showing the counterintelligence operations that have been pulled through the media, which was the research of Mr. Thomas Richards of spirituallysmart.com. And there's some really good footage of him going through the connections of the CIA's media manipulation programs and the connection of Alex Jones's high-profile guests, some of which being Knights of Malta, and being involved in such operations themselves on previous broadcasts on CNN, such as Crossfire, speaking specifically of Pat Buchanan in this instance. And so I can't say for sure that Alex Jones is a Knight of Malta. I can't say for sure that Alex Jones is a Jesuit or any of, a Freemason or anything like that. I'm not saying that I'm putting it out of the realm of possibility. I wouldn't doubt that, is possible to be the case. And, I'd love to see absolute proof of it. But I don't know if he's a member of a secret society, but I definitely think he's aware of what he's doing. I don't think that he's a dupe. I think in Alex Jones's case, it's definitely a knowing, put on job. I think he, knows that he's a used car salesman.
Actually, I'm a used car salesman, but that's not the point. Alex, look, this is the thing. The reason I say that I think Alex Jones has to belong to some sort of secret society is because of the fact that he went into the Bohemian Grove, took a bunch of footage, Mark, a bunch of footage, and walked away without a scratch. I mean, nothing happened to the man.
Oh, absolutely, and I completely agree with that. I mean, I don't think that he actually snuck in there. I'm not, I'm certainly not saying that.
Exactly. Neither do I.
I definitely think he was allowed to do that. Is probably the case. I don't think that it's possible. Like, it's just, come on, man, really? Like, you're gonna tell me that he walked by security guard? Like, in his documentary himself, he says that he walked by security and he, just told him that he was with. The Hillbillies, which I believe was the Bush clan, which it's just interesting to me that that's
right.
The clan that he would say that he was with in the first place, being, one who's going to avoid topics like the Knights of Malta, being an organization who, would be looked at as being like, high profile, dominant, like right wing, yada yada. Then you have the Bushes, but anyway, I mean, there's no way that he walked by security and just told him that he was the Hillbillies, being Alex Jones, like, even at that point in his career, granted he wasn't like super famous or anything like that, like come on, like people are doing stuff like that. He did have previous films and whatnot. Like the government knows who people like this are. There's no way. So, but I mean, prove like I wouldn't disbelieve it. I'm not I'm not going to say he is because I can't prove he is. But it's totally a possibility.
Yeah, Mark, here's the thing though. One of the reasons why he probably was able to walk by those guards and not have any issues is because he's been there before. He's a member.
Well, or I mean, he could have even brought in, just for that one instance to do that. You know what I mean? Even if he wasn't a member, or just based on what his position is. You know what I mean? Like he might not be a member of a secret society. He might just be some crazy disinfo agent, and not be a member of a secret society, but just be a disinfo agent, knowing, what he's doing. I mean, that is possible. But I'm just I'm just saying, until I see him in some garb, I'm not going to implicate him in being a member of a secret society, because then people are going to be like, oh, well then that means you probably also believe he's involved in child sacrifice, because that's what those people in those societies do. I'm not even going there. Like, until I see him wearing...
Damn right he is.
But... So, if I see him, wearing a Freemason apron, then I'll call him a Freemason.
Actually, I have a couple buddies of mine who are Freemasons. I'm not a Freemason myself, or belong to any secret society, but I do have a couple buddies who are Freemasons, and I'll tell you what, they don't know anything of anything. They're completely clueless. If there is a secret agenda, these guys absolutely have no idea of what's going on.
Well,
the total respect. With total respect.
Yeah. Well, not all Freemasons know what goes on at the high degrees of Freemasonry and the other, branches of Freemasonry that are, basically break-off organizations that get into, like, other directly Crowlinian stuff and whatnot. I mean, that's what the, lower degrees are for. That's why it's called porch masonry, essentially.
Right. Now, what exactly were the Knights of Malta? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the Knights of Malta are basically the army of the Catholic Church. The Jesuits are basically more of the intelligence agency, or like the CIA-ish of the Catholic Church. I'm personally not an expert on the Knights of Malta or the Jesuits as individual secret societies. However, if you look at the web of the secret society network, membership, etc., it's very obvious where the Knights of Malta and the Jesuits fit in. As a matter of fact, in the video that I have posted to YouTube, Alex Jones and Knights of Malta, the Jesuits, I wish I had this queued up. There's actually a quote from the Black Pope himself, who talks about commanding the world from, quote, this very room is what he's saying. And he's speaking about commanding the world from that room in a capacity where literally no one is the wiser, and that he commands the world in a capacity where he controls multiple countries, and even the multiple countries that he's controlling essentially don't know, who the man behind the curtain is. It's a very, very telling quote given in a presentation by Walter Veith. The presentation is The Secret Behind Secret Societies, if anybody wants to look that up.
It's no question in my mind that what we think is reality when it comes to the people controlling the world is completely wrong. I mean, what we believe is the actual people that are running things. Like, we think the president actually has all this power. But in reality, the president's just a puppet. I definitely believe there are secret societies, and not only secret societies, but people that are controlling the planet. Of course, the 13, families that control the world, Rockefellers and so on, the J.P. Morgans. Without a doubt, they definitely play a part in everything that goes on. And remember, the Freemasons pretty much had a part in building this country, did they not? I mean, every president that we've had has been a Freemason at some point or another. So it almost seems like you have to be into some sort of secret society to be able to get into a political position of power, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and even, the members of these secret societies who don't know what's going on, or, don't know certain things. I mean, that's, it's all a degree hierarchical system. It's all compartmentalization. Right. So, I mean, even if you do have members of these secret societies who aren't involved in the, satanic-type craziness that some of them are, as long as you're willing to, basically bend over politically and do what you're told and go along to get along, they don't necessarily care too much so long as you're willing to follow the agenda, I think.
Now, speaking of bending over, the Skull and Bones are known to have some crazy rituals. One of which is they put a couple of the guys together in, what is it, a sarcophagus type of thing, and they have to tell each other their secrets or their fears, crazy stuff like that. And of course, we know that the Bushes are all Skull and Bone members, do we not?
The Bushes were Skull and Bone members. I believe they're all right down the line. Prescott, Father Bush, Junior Bush, and then, of course, as well with that election, you had the Kerry Bush election where both members were Skull and Bones, where, of course, you have this two elite members, brothers in Skull and Bones, and members of the same secret society. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that Bush and Kerry are even like sixth or seventh cousins or something crazy like that. But, I mean, it just goes to show you the absolute control that these people have, over the public. When you're voting for, two members of the same very elite society, they only tap, what is it, 15 members each year?
You're absolutely right about them being cousins. In fact, I saw a report once that almost every president has been linked by blood to just about, to each other. Bush, Kerry, Obama, they're all linked. They're all cousins. Dick Cheney is a cousin with Abraham Lincoln. They're all interrelated, which is kind of fun. It's kind of amusing, but at the same time, it goes back to they all come from from those 13 families that control the world, right? I mean, that's kind of my take on it.
Right, and the people for people out there who seem to have a hard time grasping how things can be so controlled by so few people. I mean, understand that in all reality, I mean, for 15 families, I mean, there's 13 families, and then there's like two, I forgot what Springmeyer referred to them as. They're like essentially like branch off bloodlines or whatever, but 13 to 15 families control the planet, and when those families only essentially marry into people from those other 13 to 15 families, it's very easy to keep wealth and power consolidated. When you have that kind of an agreement and relationship built between you, and you already have, since your families have had that much money and that much power for so long, I mean, it's really not that difficult, and considering the tactics of compartmentalization which militaries have been using, for years, to get agendas carried out efficiently and without everybody knowing for, quote unquote intelligence and national security type reasons, too much about what's going on. It's really not that difficult at all to see how, this is how the world could be run, or I should say is run.
What do you think of the, I don't know if you've seen this movie, the Zeitgeist movement, and the plans in the third film that they came out with, the plans to have a new, kind of, I would say, is a new world order type of world, but the movement kind of abolished the government and did away with Federal Reserve, did away with a lot of the stuff that we have now. Do you think that's a good way to go? Because I personally think that as soon as we get rid of the Federal Reserve, we're going to start, doing things the right way, because they're, I think, the one thing that's crippling this world.
The Federal Reserve is huge. Definitely a big thing. However, my thing with the Federal Reserve is this. Right now, there's a big movement going on in the truth movement, right, called End the Fed. And pretty much everybody knows about the truth movement, also knows about End the Fed. End the Fed is tied to the truth movement. Most of the truthers / patriots, Ron Paul supporters, they all support End the Fed. And in my opinion, right now, like, okay, this will get us back to the Alex Jones thing, too. Looking at Alex Jones, right, I mean, we agree that he's going more mainstream by the day. Like, I mean, I have the video series up in my Derek channel, the Alex Jones Glenn Beck Media Psyop. And here we have a quote, actually, in this series where Alex Jones says, "I can never completely trust Beck due to all the crap that he's pulled." And then, like, 2 minutes later, Alex says, "But if Beck continues to get increasingly hardcore info out like he's been doing, then we can even trust him, maybe." And it's this very sophisticated psyop going on multiple levels to get the truthers more opened up to Glenn Beck and to get Jones's listeners more prepped for when Jones finally gets made a regular guest on some mainstream show or has his own show on some network like True TV or Fox News or whatever.
Right.
So since we're seeing Alex Jones being pushed into the mainstream to this degree, then to me, that means that something's going on here. I mean, if Alex Jones is going this mainstream and he's being allowed on The View, even if it is just to talk about Charlie Sheen, the fact that they're allowing Alex Jones and being the person that he does, the work that he does, allegedly, or the truth work that he does, being allowed on The View, like, how many viewers does The View have, really? I mean, how many people saw that? It's, exactly. So, I mean, they're getting this information. They have to be prepping the public to accept what I call, like, the info warrior, info wars, whatever, level of truth, but no further. They want people, I think, woken up to, certain things, but only to a certain degree. They don't want people waking up to everything. That's why Alex Jones won't talk about the Vatican connection to the New World Order, won't talk about the Jesuits, Nets, Malta, etc. But, he will tell you 90% of truth, but then he'll spin a lot of it and he'll exaggerate a lot of it. And he plays this crazy character on air. So when you tell your friends about him, even though a lot of it's true, they listen to one radio broadcast and they hear him scream like a gorilla and they're like, this guy's insane.
Well, not only that, I mean, the personality sells. I mean, remember, everything you do when it comes to media is all about personality, and he has a personality that is over the top, but it does sell. People are attracted to that over the top type of personality, so that's another reason for his antics. But you're absolutely right. I mean, his jargon is really 90% half truth. I wouldn't give him that much credit as saying it all truths, but there's a lot of half truths in there. But a lot of it is spin. It really is.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Like, he'll even a lot of stories where there aren't many people talking about it. He'll tell you, he'll report on it because other people, in the alternative media are going to report on it, of course. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he exaggerates and sensationalizes and spins a very great many things. And Some of it I think is purely for disinformation purposes, and I think others, is just because he's learned, oh, well, this will make me more money if I sell it this way.
Well, yeah, that it's all for show. I mean, a lot of it is for show. In fact, the reason I brought up the Zeitgeist and the whole Venus project a little while ago is because of the fact that he had a conversation with Peter Joseph, the creator of the Zeitgeist movement, and they butted heads and they went at each other for a little bit. And Peter Joseph actually, I think, might be onto something with the Venus Project and everything that they were talking about in that movement, which was about, of course, abolishing government, abolishing the Federal Reserve. And it's funny it's funny that as they were talking about that, Alex Jones got really upset and he started getting really over the top at Peter Joseph, and he started going at him, really in a very unprofessional manner, which to me tells me that's a tell. When you hear somebody talk, you can get a tell by the way they speak, the things they say, and you can start telling, the type of personality this person has or what his real mentality is. And the fact that he's getting upset at somebody who is talking about, essentially starting over because the government is broken, and he is getting this upset and he's starting to attack you at a personal level, that tells me that this guy is nothing more than a pawn for the government.
Well, I mean, anybody can get offended and attack you on a personal level just because they disagree, and some people are just jerks, and when, or they don't know how to handle debate or confrontation, and, when somebody attacks somebody that, somebody holds in esteem or somebody else's idea or viewpoint or whatever have you, somebody can get angry and attack somebody personally just because of that. So, I mean, but yeah, sometimes, I guess it depends on the context of the conversation, but yeah, so there are instances where when people do specifically avoid information, when it's factual, verifiable, sourced information, or when it's visual information where you can look at it and, I mean, your eyes see what they see. You can lie to yourself, but your eyes see what they see. Depending on stuff like that, I mean, yeah, when people are, say, just avoiding information and doing it in a jerky sense, rather than looking at it and calling himself a researcher, that's when, yeah, it starts to be an issue. Because, your instant reaction, if you're talking about a guy on the street, okay, more likely he probably just disagrees with your opinion. If you're somebody in the research community, however, I mean, then you're expected to be of more integrity, have some honor, and know,
be a little professional.
Yeah, exactly. You have to deal with it on that basis, and you have to leave, your opinions out of it. So, yeah, when you respond to something, you are supposed to respond, as if, okay, look, now I have to look at this and look at it objectively and not just be emotional about it. So, I mean, depending on the context, I could totally see those things going either way. But, yeah, I've definitely dealt with instances like that. And with Jones, again, I think that with him, I think it's probably a tell.
Yeah, that's a big tell, I think. Listen, Mark, we're about to hit a commercial break here for a few minutes. When we return, we are going to open the lines. Anybody who wants to get in on the show here and ask Mark any questions, please do so. 786-245-8127. It's the number. This is the Jackal's Head, PSN Radio. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back to PSN Radio, the Jackal's Head, SoFlo Radio, TalkStream Live. Want to thank everybody who's still listening in. I know that football has been on TV all day today, and I know that the NFL's going to kick our ass every Sunday night. That's just the way it is. There's no doubts about that. I mean, the NFL is a huge monster of a sport. And, we're going to play second fiddle for the rest of the season until January, and then we should be pretty good from there on out. But you know what? We have a lot of listeners listening in, and I want to thank you for staying up and listening, and we have another hour to go here. But we still have Mr. Mark Jungwirth on the line with us. And, Mark, we've been talking about Alex Jones and about a lot of the conspiracy stuff that's been going on behind the scenes politically. Now, before I had you on the show tonight, I had a man by the name of Ben Shapiro on for the first hour of the show, and me and him were talking about the primetime propaganda book that he put out about how the left took over Hollywood and basically took over the media. And that's something that it really has been happening, but it's kind of amusing that that's been happening for the last few years really problem, to the point that it's kind of in your face, where you can tell that there's a leftist movement in this country. But before that, it seemed like there was a big right-wing movement, and that's when Bush was in office. So it's like it zigzagged back and forth. But to me, and really, this is kind of like something that I addressed with Shapiro, and I'd like to get your point of view on this. To me, it doesn't really matter if it's left or right. Both of them are kind of playing on the same team, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I don't think it matters what side they're giving you, what side they're putting more forward on the forefront of public view,
Right.
who they're making it look like is running the show to the public. Because in all reality, neither the Democrats nor the Republicans as a party run this country, no matter who is elected as president. All of the politicians are essentially actors for the most part, especially when you're talking about high-level politics. So, I mean, yeah, they're all playing for the same team. They're all just controlled figureheads for the people running the show from behind the scenes. I think, these people, the left and the right, the whole idea of a left and a right is just another paradigm to keep us, wrapped up into that, whole, well, if we vote for this party, then, things will change. Well, no,
Right.
it won't.
Yeah, it won't change. Like I said, they're both playing for the same team. So what can we do to change things? I mean, there really is no way to change things with the current structure and the conditioning we've had in this country and in this world, really, for the last 100 years. I mean, how could we make a change?
How can we make a change? Well, I personally think, of course, if that's the question, the first answer I have to give, being a Christian, would be get right with God, seek Jesus. Absolutely, no doubt. No matter what happens, regardless of whether it's a Jack Fresco, Venus Project type future, or whether it's, an extremely, Nazi Germany, oppressive FEMA camp type future, no matter what, that is the answer. That's pretty much the answer to just about everything, if you're going to ask me. And I know there's going to be a lot of listeners out there going to go, he's a Jesus freak, and yada, yada. Well, you're talking to somebody who's a saved Christian. So, in some of these answers, you're going to get a lot of straight biblically Christian answers in that sense. But honestly, I think the best thing you can possibly do is try to, share Jesus with people, bring people to Christ through prayer, show them the power of the Holy Spirit. If they have any questions, answer them. If you're a believer, if you're not a believer, get on your knees and honestly ask God if he will show you, because he will, that the Bible is true and that Jesus is Lord, and he will answer your prayer. And it might take 10 minutes, and it might take 10 days, and it might take 10 years. It probably won't take 10 years, believe me, especially in these days. God works quick, but he will answer that prayer, and it'll happen in a way that you know that God answered that prayer, and you will know that God knows you personally. And that sounds hard to believe, but if you disbelieve me, then test it. And you will find that I'm right. This is coming from somebody who hated religion for 26 years. Never wanted to be a Christian. This is the last thing I ever wanted. And now I'll tell you, there's nothing on earth I love more than getting in the Word and literally feeling the Holy Spirit. So, the day I was saved, I was over at a buddy's house who, ironically, like you were saying, you have a friend who's a Freemason. The day I was saved, I was at his house with a copy of Morals and Dogma, quoting Morals and Dogma back-to-back with Scripture, talking about, dude, are you serious? Because the guy is, claims to be a professing Christian and had even attempted to get me. He was, he's a porch mason, doesn't, know what's up at the higher levels, and I tried showing him, and he's like, no, that's not, it's not true and whatnot. And he knows, all about 9/11, and he knows about some things, but, a lot of the stuff he's, not aware of, and, but that's what happened. I mean, that was the transformation, with my testimony. And if you want to see my testimony, you can check it out at youtube.com/wearechange Oshkosh, OSHKOSH. It's Oshkosh. But this is my testimony, I believe is the title of it. But yeah, I mean, the Lord does amazing things, man. If there's an answer to anything, God has it, or the Bible will lead you to it.
What do you say to people like myself that are completely non-believers? I mean, I'm a complete atheist at this point. I'm going to be honest with you. What do you say to people like myself, and what advice do you have for people like myself?
I, I mean, first of all, I would say that I've been there. I've been an atheist, and it's not to say that I'm above you in any way. I'm just saying I at one time believed totally what you believe. I did not believe that there was a God. I didn't believe that there was any place that we went after this. I just believed that it was essentially nothing. Didn't think there was any kind of judgment, whatnot. I thought right and wrong were just ideas, perceptions that had been put into our head, invented by, whoever, the control structure, what have you. But I come to find out, it's not the same for everybody. Everybody comes to know God in a different way. And yes, we all know the same God if it is the true God. But for people like you, I would say, I mean, like I said originally, if you're not a believer, ask God to show you that the Bible is real and that Jesus is your Savior and that's the truth about this world. And He will show you. I mean, if you ask in sincerity, like I said, you don't ask mockingly or in jest or, in any sort of, disrespectful sense, then, I mean, why would God answer that request? You're not even asking Him honorably. But, I mean, if you ask Him sincerely, I promise you and guarantee you He will answer you. So if you want to test it out, if you're an atheist, if you're an unbeliever of sorts, ask. Just ask. I mean, if you're not, I'm not saying you are afraid. I'm just saying anybody out there, unless you're too afraid of what's going to happen, unless you're too afraid of God being real or whatever, if you want the truth, ask. He'll answer you.
So,
and,
let me ask you, what was that moment that sparked in your head that, you know what, I believe in God now? I mean, you said you were an atheist. So what was that moment like?
I hated it, man. I hated religion. I tested so many people's faith on purpose, and I enjoyed it. Like, I poked fun at religion, all that. But, for me, it was a power encounter. For me, it wasn't like, it was a combination of two things. One, I had looked at this New World Order research for years and years, and I knew that it was all true. And for years, I had been kicking away its connection to the Christian side of things because I was being made aware over and over again. Like, it just kept being brought back into my life through, what I, consider now to be the hand of God, keeps getting brought back into my life that, oh, look, these researchers that are, hitting on the hardest core things are being shut up. And guess what? Oh, they're Christians. Or these are the only, people that are talking about things from this perspective. Everybody else is saying something different about it. Oh, they're Christians and they're getting put in jail. Or, Fritz Springmeier, John Todd, Bill Cooper, all Christians, all talking about aliens are really demons and all professing Christ. And all of them are just literally essentially done away with. I mean, Springmeier wasn't actually killed. He did years in prison. But, I mean, John Todd literally just disappeared, and Springmeier years in prison, and then Cooper dead. So, I mean, those are just some things. But for me, I suffered from depression for years and years, and it got worse and worse. And coinciding with my years of research into the New World Order and finding out that all that's true, and constantly being like, just like, tapped on the shoulder, hey, look, and like having that, bringing these Christian researchers that, into my life, into my path of research, really, all those coincidences, because it kept happening with more than one issue over and over. And then, I just kept brushing it off. I'm not going to deal with this from the Christian perspective. Then one day I was doing some research trying to debunk a documentary that put everything together in this context that I didn't want to be true because it meant the Bible was real. So I started trying to debunk this thing, and like an hour into this one interview that I'm trying to debunk, I'm just sitting in front of my computer and I feel like a pound leave my body and it goes straight up, like frozen rope, straight up. And I'm just looking around, I was like, what was that? And I was a little freaked out, to be honest, at first. And then after about a minute passes, I started to come to my senses. I'm looking around, no craziness has happened, and then it hits me. I'm like, I'm not depressed right now. This is crazy. And I was waited for it to come back, and it didn't. And I knew what it was instantly, and I started praying that day. And ever since, literally, I've not suffered even an instance of depression unless my walk with Christ has been suffering and I've been stumbling a bit. And those are the only times it even comes back for a bit. And, like, God throws it back at me, and He's like, hey, you remember this? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then everything's fine again. It's pretty crazy.
Mark, listen, we have a caller on the line who I think has a question for you. Caller 215, you're on the air with Mark Jungwirth, and you're on the Jackal's Head. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Jackal, and thank you, Mark. I do have a question. I'm a little confused by something I heard. I want to say that I do agree that you can't seek God insincerely. I mean, an insincere quest for God, is not going to make any sense. But I don't understand how you could challenge an atheist to try that if they inherently just don't believe in God. How could they sincerely ask something they don't believe in to come into their life?
Good question.
Well, it is a very good question. Then the thing is, this is the answer. If you don't believe in something, like for instance, I didn't used to believe that the world is like it is now. You probably didn't either. You're calling into the show. The show usually talks about, New World Order type things, conspiratorial type things, UFOs, etc. So we didn't used to believe in any of those things. I thought it was downright nonsense, and the reason I started looking into any of this stuff was because I had a buddy who I thought was quote-unquote crazy, who kept telling me about this stuff. I started looking into it, tried to disprove it, found out it was true. It was my desire to know the truth, even if it meant that I was wrong currently in my current belief, even though it still was, at that point, a currently held belief.
Well, I mean, I also have a desire to seek the truth, and I'm talking from a personal standpoint, but I think many other listeners of the show, or even people who believe in, UFOs or something, some people believe and some people simply, desire the truth about it, and that's where they seek it out. But I still I don't understand, it's like personally, I'm kind of agnostic. Like, I don't believe in God. I mean, I kind of like to, because like anyone else, I'm kind of afraid of dying. That's, the idea of ceasing to exist is not something I like. And, I do try and explore spirituality sometimes, but when it comes to matters of faith, the faith is so inherent that it's like, you have to believe that. I just don't understand how I could even try and bring that into my life. I mean, do you get what I'm saying?
I do, but this is the thing. That, like, when you're talking about the issue of faith, I love that that's where you went with it. Because the truth is that I don't have, like, me personally and all the other believers that I've ever met who are truly saved and who truly have experienced, like, the power of God. Honestly, none of us believe and just have faith for no reason, which is what, like, a lot of people believe is the connotation of Christians and having faith. Well, some things, you just have to have faith. Well, that's just this crazy misconception that's been put out there and bred into society as part of the program to make Christians look silly or crazy or what have you. It's because, we believe in things without, just using blind faith. We don't, have any proof. No, most of us believe because personal proof, because we've literally seen prayers answered in ways that only God could do. And I mean this in a very specific manner, where sometimes God will, tell you that he knows you as a person in the way he answers a prayer, or, sometimes it will be something that's just so blatantly obvious that it's like, God was watching over you and, hey, look, I just saved you or whatever just happened. Like, for instance, I went to this, it was basically a politics and religion conference called Future Congress in Branson, Missouri a while ago. And when I got there, I ended up meeting with a guy named Russ Dizdar and Tom Dunn, and now I'm a member of this organization called Project Josiah. Long story short, when Tom Dunn was driving with his friend Justin from Ohio to Branson, they were in Tom's car, and they found out on the way there, the car started making this noise. They took it to a shop, found out that some part was wrong with the car, and not only did the part have a problem, but the belt on whatever part it was also about to snap, literally. And they couldn't deal with it right then, had to keep going and get to the conference and just hope that it was going to make it. So they come out of the place, lay hands on the car, pray over the situation, and get back in the car, start driving. And Branson still at that point was not a short drive. They literally get to the hotel that the conference is at, pull into the parking stall, and as they pull into the parking stall and put the car into park, the belt snaps. Like, damn. And that's just one story. I mean, if you listen to Prayer Watch, you'll hear 100 of those stories eventually. I mean, that's just one instance. And there are prayers that get answered like that all the time. And I used to not believe in it, you know, because sometimes prayers don't get answered instantly. And, you know, I mean, that's a prayer that has to get answered instantly or it's not going to matter, you know what I'm saying? But, I mean, sometimes you pray about something, it doesn't happen right away. No, it doesn't mean God hates you or that he's not going to answer it. Maybe it's just not going to happen right now. But there's, yeah, man, I just, I don't know, I've seen a lot of amazing things happen. I've experienced things in my life, like my depression leaving me. I suffered from depression for years, you know, and it was taken from me. It wasn't like I prayed it away or, you know, like, I was not even prayer involved. I had no interest in Christian life at that point in time. And God stepped in and said, "What's up, son? I'm real." And I was like, "Oh, I guess you are."
See, my thing is not so much against God or the belief that there's a higher being that created the entire cosmos, all of existence, everything that we know to be. My take is the religion is just full of baloney. All of them. I don't buy into any religious institutions. And you know why? One reason I think all religions are full of baloney is because these are the same religions that not that long ago thought the world was flat. So how much do they really know?
Well,
Now,
I used to personally think that all religions were created by, you know, the Illuminati as part of the control structure.
Actually, you're probably on the right money there. You're on the money because I do believe that all religions have been put in place, and hear me out now. Religions, I believe, were created to put a sort of governmental control over people. What is the biggest enforcer that you have than the Word of God? You know, when people were unruly at a time where they had no laws, no real form of government, religion sprung up. And religions had the word of a God, which put fear into people. That's why in the Bible, God is a fearing but a loving God. But he puts fear into you. You know, the Bible could be interpreted in many different ways, and the problem is it's been rewritten like how many times now? Like 17 times in the last.
That's the thing. That's one of the big misconceptions. I used to be under that impression too. The Bible has not been written and rewritten and played like the telephone game the way that most people think it has. I used to believe that as well. Now the truth is that they have original manuscripts of the Bible from God knows how long back.
Right.
They take all of those scripts and they match them up, and they found that about 80 or 90% of them match exactly, and the rest of them have slight differentiations. So they threw out the ones that are slightly different, kept the ones that all match. That's what the real Bible is considered. Now, that's the real Bible. Now,
are we talking about the Old Testament? Are we talking about the New Testament, the King James Version?
We're talking about the scriptures in general, like the whole Bible. Basically, the way that they got the whole Bible.
Remember, a lot of the Bible was brought forth by the Dead Sea Scrolls, by the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I mean, this is where they got the basic concept for what became the Bible later on. And to be honest, a lot of the stuff that you even see in the Bible is something that we've covered here on the show when we talk about the Sumerians and the Anunnaki and their writings about how they created men in their image under their likeness, and so on and so forth. And
I agree that, yeah, you totally had other cultures talking about
the same thing, basically.
It's the same stories, right? And that only goes to verify its account and prove that, hey, look, it's not just the people that wrote the Bible that are talking about these things. It's other people in other parts of the world, too. So, if anything, that just goes to verify its legitimacy.
Well, no, it just verifies that somebody had a nice case of plagiarism when they were writing the Bible, because they just took a lot of other stories which were mythology. Like, for example, let's talk about Noah's Ark. Okay, Noah's Ark, the Great Flood. If we talk about Noah's Ark and the Great Flood in the Bible, you know, that's one character. But if you look a little deeper in history, you have the trials of Gilgamesh, and then you have his flood. And there's other floods throughout history. You know, and my thing is, look, the reason there's so many floods is because there's been a lot of hurricanes, a lot of different, you know, events throughout history that have caused floods, and people have written about them, and it's become mythology over the years. And then when the Bible got into play, whoever was writing the thing got a nice case of plagiarism and started putting together stories from mythical times from the past, you know, of different events. The Bible, in many ways, is just a recollection of a lot of old tales and old stories put together in one book. That's really
I disagree, because if you test life by the Bible's rules that other books from older texts, like you mentioned, don't contain, and live by life by the biblical standards, you find that it is the true Word of God.
Well, which version again? Which version? The King James version? The Old Testament?
If you read the... first of all, there isn't much difference at all other than a few words here and there to modernize language. If you go from the King James to the NIV has much more modernized wording, but if you read the text word for word, the basic message of you're reading essentially the same exact thing. You really are. There are very, very few words that are actually different or that make it mean anything even slightly different when you move translation to translation. And I can say that because I own multiple versions of Bibles, and I've literally read like verse for verse on many of them.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what's actually in some of the Bible. For example, murder in the Bible. I'm sure you're aware that the act of murder is rampant in the Bible. In much of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, there are laws that command that people be killed for absurd reasons, such as working on the Sabbath, being gay, cursing your parents, or not being a virgin on your wedding night. In addition to these crazy immoral laws, there are plenty of examples of God's irrationality by his direct killing of many people for reasons that defied any rational explanation, such as killing children who make fun of bald people. I'm bald, by the way. And the killing of a man who tried to keep the Ark of God from failing or falling during transport. There's also countless examples of mass murder commanded by God, including the murders of women, infants, and children. The following passage are a very small percentage of the total, and I can read passages.
True and out of context.
All this is true. Slavery is in the Bible. The Bible has a lot of things in it that is not exactly very rosy or very good. My point here, and this is what I'm trying to get at, and we're already over by 10 minutes, but this is a fascinating turn that this conversation took, and the reason that now we've gone over is because I want to make this point very clear, and I completely, I respect the fact that you're a born-again Christian. That's... I respect everybody's point of view when it comes to religion, but my thing is, I don't think you need religion to be happy or to be a positive person or to be a good person. See, I'm a complete atheist, but I've never harmed a person in my life. I don't do harm to others because I have a moral code which tells me, hey, this is right, this is wrong, don't do wrong to others because you don't want it done to you. I live by that code. Don't do bad to others because I don't want bad done to me. And I think you don't need religion or to be indoctrinated by a religion to live like that.
Don't murder me, and I won't rape you and steal your shit.
Exactly.
How about that for a compromise?
There you go. Just leave me alone, and I'll leave you the hell alone. That's how I live my life, and it's worked out pretty well for 33 years. I've never had a problem with anybody, and again, I've never hurt a soul in my life. I can sleep well at night knowing that. And you don't need religion or religious institutes to get to that point. That's really the point I was trying to make, Mark. And like I said, I respect the fact that you are a born again Christian, but it's amazing how you've gone from a complete atheist to born again Christian, and that spark that you had. I mean, I've never had it myself, and if I ever do, man, I'll tell you what, I'll go on air and I will gladly talk about what changed my point of view. But honestly, I haven't seen anything to this point that steers me in that direction. So I'm completely baffled by the fact that you've made such a huge transition from atheist to born again Christian.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely happened, and like I said, I wasn't even looking for it. I had no interest in being religious, and I constantly, kicked it away, and I felt, pretty much exactly like both of you guys. I mean, I had literally, almost all of the same arguments to all of the same things, and I found out that just about all of it was misconception. Like, for instance, a lot of people, one of the biggest points against the Bible being part of the control structure, it's a fact that the church actually kept the Bible from the people for 1,600 years before anybody was even allowed to read it.
How's that?
The Bible is information that they did not want the public to have. That's why the masses were always said in Latin, and the public generally didn't speak Latin, so they literally stood there in front of a service listening to, what they believed in or what they, thought they were supposed to believe in. They didn't even know what was being said. But, eventually, Martin Luther, yada yada, people can read the Bible. Then the Protestant Reformation happened, so they figured out, wait a minute, this is totally not what the church is telling us it says. And then, this same church is the same church, that's Malta, the Jesuits, etc., at the top of the control structure, and these are the same people that have kept the Bible out of the hands of the general public for 1,600 years before it was finally put into a language where the public could read it. And then a movement started to break away from this church because they found out, hey, wait a minute, they're not telling us the truth. And then, it's just one of the biggest arguments that it's part of the control structure is that the fact that, 1,600 years, they did their damnedest, believe me. They did not want the public to have that information.
Well, they might not have wanted the entire planet to have that information, but I'm sure the elites all had the information. The people in the need to know had the information. The people who were conditioning the rest of the world had the information, and that's the point. You might not want the entire planet to know all the information, but you want the ones conditioning others to have it, so they can continue conditioning those folks, and that's what happened. And and to be honest, let me ask you a question. What do you make of the comparison of Jesus, for example, to other demigods like Horus and all the other gods who share the exact same attributes, for example?
My response to that is that, first of all, the information that you're referring to is mostly sourced back to a woman named Acharya S. Now, Acharya S is the biggest source for most of Zeitgeist Part 1. Acharya S received most of the information that she has in her books regarding such things from channeled entities. Now, if you're willing to believe a channeled entity is a source from a woman that's writing a book, you can go right ahead and do that. I'm going to choose all the scholarly works.
Well, putting her aside, putting her
sources.
Yeah, but putting her aside, it is a fact. Okay, it is a fact that Horus was a demigod in Egypt. It was a fact that Horus was to be thought was born on December 25th, yada yada, the entire the entire script, basically, the whole entire backstory.
That's just what I'm saying, though. That's if you actually look into the scholarly works of the people who wrote about, that's not true. Check out, hold on, I'm going to give you a link to it's ridiculous, the sources and the works that it all goes through. No, it's actually a misconception that Zeitgeist is promoting, that there's this similarity between Jesus and all these other, gods or demigods or supposedly mythical or godly figures throughout history. And actually, although there are, one or two vague similarities in like one or two cases, there's not at all this crazy list that would make you think that Jesus in the story has just been repeated and that, there's all these other gods out there that were just the same story as Jesus or what have you. That's actually not true at all and is a big misconception.
Well, it might be a misconception, but, I know you took a nice jab at the supposed source of Zeitgeist being a person who was channeling information, but that's no different than the people who wrote the Bible, who were supposedly channeling saints and spirits and getting information from them. So no real difference.
This is where that would be different.
No real difference. No real difference than a guy claiming to be the son of God and trying to take over entire populations and condition them to believe that he's the son of God. I mean, that's no different than David Koresh in the Branch of Idiots.
Just wait. I'll explain exactly how that's different. First of all, when you're talking about somebody channeling entities and it being, a godly entity or, a channeled entity of, Acharya S, or whatever entity that she was channeling, the difference is, speaking from a biblical perspective, of course, when you're engaged with any spiritual entity, it's either a good or evil spirit, obviously. It's either an angel or a fallen angel or a demon, same thing. Point being, you have to test the spirits and see what kind of entity you're involved with, and the only way to do so is to engage that entity and ask it if Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. Now, if the spiritual entity answers you, yes, Christ has come in the flesh, you're good to go. Trust the entity. If, on the other hand, it denies that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh, then it is not of God, and you don't engage it, and you command it away in the name of Christ. And that's the only test that is given biblically for those things, and those are tests that Acharya S either didn't know about or didn't administer because she's not a Christian either way. So regardless, there's no way that you can trust, from my perspective, what she was being told. On the other hand, if she would have said, this entity came to me and I put it through this test and the entity responded as such, yada, 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 passed the test, I could listen to it, okay, I'd listen to what she had to say. However, from my perspective, the Christian perspective, she's under a deception from an entity. She probably believes she's getting real and correct information, but it's not. And I believe that a lot of these people, you know, in the New Age type area, are under a deception and believe, you know, they are, I believe, having real, genuine experiences with real entities. I just don't believe that they're aware of what these entities are, and I don't believe they understand the ways that they test them. And if I believe that if they did know the way to test them, that they would quickly find out that these things aren't exactly what they say they are.
Well, here's the thing, and this is where I stand. We're almost out of time here. We only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to end it right here. I go back to the same thing. At the end of the day, it's nothing but stories. A lot of it is nothing but people saying that they had visions or they had contact with, you know, beings from another side, from another realm. As soon as people start telling me that they're hearing voices, that's when I start believing these people are crazy. Now, I've had people on my show who say they hear voices and they have contacted other people, and as soon as you go 10 minutes into the conversation, you know these people are bananas. And that is across the board. I don't believe anybody who tells me that they have had any kind of vision with any kind of entity, with any kind of spirit, or have heard any kind of voices. To me, I mean, I would have to be that person hearing the voices myself. And if I ever start hearing voices, I want myself to be committed. Because at that point, I should be committed. Anybody who hears voices, honestly, should be committed. That's why I have no belief whatsoever in any religious institution. But again, I'm not discounting that there could be a God. And at the end of the day, whether there is one religion or 1,000 religions, they all kind of pray to the same God, they say.
I have a question, though. If you believe that there could be a God, I mean, you're an atheist, but you say you believe that there could be a God. If there could be a God, then what's to discount that there could also be demons or at least evil presences? And how do you discount the idea that
don't believe in demons? Don't believe in demons. Don't believe in heaven or hell. All that stuff is man-made stuff. The Bible's man-made stuff. The bottom line is God never put a book here himself that He wrote and said, "Okay, here's my laws written by me, penned by me, Jehovah." That's never happened. What we've gotten is books written by man and man alone, and man who've had visions, supposedly. So again, at the end of the day, it's all stories, man. That's my my take on it. It's all stories. It's all people who have had visions and really have no concrete evidence to prove anything. This is the same thing that we deal with in the UFO community, where we have a lot of folks like the Billy Myers, like Sheldon Neidl, who come forward with these outlandish stories and have created these cult-like movements around themselves and have almost a religious figure and iconic figure in ufology, and have built these massive personalities in ufology, all to make money, all to draw people to, you know, really buy into their cult. And that's what religions are to me. They're just nothing but cults, all of them.
Yeah, like I said, I completely used to believe that. I really did. But when you have a legitimate spiritual experience, it's pretty hard to deny, what the truth is. I mean, I was literally put in a position by God to either, face the truth of what happened to me or lie to myself the rest of my life, and I wasn't about to do that. I had, about 7 years already or so of experience in New World Order research at that point, and I already had, made the decision that, all right, this is what it is. This is, the New World Order research on its own is game of cards where once you decide to sit down at the table, you get dealt your hand. If you pick it up and you look at the cards, you can fold right away and never come back to the table, or you sit there and you play until whatever happens. And
I don't buy into the whole New World Order thing myself personally. I don't think there is a group called the New World Order, other than the one that used to be in the wrestling organization WCW. That's the only New World Order that I think ever existed. I think there is an Illuminati and there's secret societies that are running things and are doing a lot of harm to the world. And they have a lot of different agendas, and any movement that leads into anything different than we have currently could be looked at as a New World Order. The Zeitgeist movement could be looked at as a New World Order movement. The Amero with the North American Union could be looked at as a New World Order movement. Just about anything that is different from what we have now. In fact, America, for many for many years, I think it was the New World Order because we were different from the rest of the world. So in many ways, America is the New World Order as it is right now. So I don't know. I've never really bought into this. Is one of the problems I've always had with Alex Jones was that he keeps always pointing to the New World Order, the New World Order, and I'm like, dude, there really is no New World Order. You're kind of making this shit up as you go along, because there really isn't a New World Order. There is other interest groups that are running things, but the New World Order is kind of a figment of imaginations more than anything else.
So I think the New World Order is sort of a generalized term that the control structure has come to be called. I mean, there is no official group that meets under the name the New World Order, you know. But it's just kind of a generalized term, I guess, that the so-called Truth Movement, which, yeah, I kind of have beefs even with the name Truth Movement, but, you know, for lack of a better word, it's, you know, what the Truth Movement has come to call the general control structure of the people who run the world, you know. I mean, and they do, I mean, you know, even they do use the term. I mean, you've seen news reports of plenty of politicians referring to the New World Order over the years. So, I mean, it does have some basis in reality. But, yeah, I mean, it's not like there's one group of 10 guys who are the New World Order sitting together in a room meeting.
Hey, I'll tell you what, Mark, you know, religious views aside, you're a hell of a nice guy. I really enjoy having you on the show. We're out of time, unfortunately, but before I do let you go, my friend, I want to ask one favor from you, and I do this to all my guests, so you're not the first. You definitely won't be the last, but I will request a bumper from you before you leave. And what I want you to say is, this is Mark Jungwirth, and now I'm a voice inside the Jackal's head. And you can make a variation of that. You could improvise if you want a little bit. By all means, the floor is now yours.
I'm Mark Jungwirth, and now I'm a voice inside the Jackal's head.
There you go. You're a gentleman and a scholar, my friend. And you know what? Like I said, all religious stuff aside, you know, it's fun to at least talk about that kind of stuff. I always like talking to people who are religious just to see what makes them tick and why I'm so not religious. I don't know. I just completely missed the boat, I think, on religion. It just passed me by. I'm just not into it. And believe it or not, I grew up a Jehovah's Witness.
Interesting. Well, I grew up, you know, surrounded by a family of Catholics, and the reason that I hated religion was because I had really poor examples, and I was like, really? Well, if this is what you talk about, and this is how you behave, then your word of God must be some nonsense. So, but, you know, it was like I said, I was under a whole lot of misconceptions. But either way, man, I mean, if you're willing to look at some information, I'll send you a link to, like, one film. You look at it, tell me what you think, you know, whatever. Go from there. If you don't want me to send you anything else, I'll leave the Christianity out of it.
By all means, go ahead and send it, my friend. I'm always open to discover new worlds, even though I've done a lot of research in religion. But we'll definitely have you back on. We'll talk a little bit more in the future. What do you say?
Yeah, man, sounds good to me. I really appreciate being on air with you. Thank you very much for the time. God bless you.
Take care. God bless you too, sir. See, and that's from a person who's an atheist. I still say it because, hey, I'm open to the fact that there could be a God or a fact that there could not be a God. Whatever. I don't know. I'm just a guy. We'll be right back on the Jackal's Head with Down the Drain with Soar.